In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. 160 years ago today, our Blessed Mother appeared to Saint Bernadette at Lourdes, Our Lady of Lourdes. We can ask several questions about this event. We can ask why. Why did our Blessed Mother appear there and then? France, as was much of the world at that time, was suffering from over half a century of revolutions. Revolutions of the social order, of God's order. Witnessing the rise of communistic ideas, which preceded the communistic states, of that philosophy of rationalism that denies God's power and His complete and supreme authority over every aspect of our lives, including over the civil government. That revolution that denied the rights due to God's holy church, the one only true faith, and that also denied miracles. Now, rationalism, liberalism, like our government, communism, all of these envision a world without God, or, at best, where religion is a personal hobby. They envision a world separate from God, a world devoid of miracles, independent. Essentially, a world of creatures rebelling against their Creator, saying, we don't need you, we can do these things just fine on our own. We don't need God in the government. We don't need God in public life at all. He's not present. He's not here. Just a concept. Now why? Why could these evil ideologies think that the social order, that any government, could survive without an explicit foundation on the one true God of the Catholic faith? How could they turn their backs on man's need for miracles, on man's inability to govern himself? Simply put, they believed in themselves, in the power of man, and disbelieved in man's fallenness. This, of course, makes rationalism that much more silly. Fallen nature of man is obvious to all. Just try driving down the road a little bit, and you'll see it. You won't see it in someone else, you'll see it in yourself, hopefully. But they said that man had no original sin. Therefore, if he so chose, if he gave up his belief in miracles, in God outside himself, he could finally take control and order society on his own and create a perfect godless state where man would finally be happy. And the miseries that have come from both communist and liberal governments across the world are well known. The moral destitution, if not material destitution, of communist and liberal countries like our own needs no demonstration. What does this have to do with our Blessed Mother and her apparition at Lourdes? I think quite a bit. She communicated quite a bit with Saint Bernadette, but a lot of that was left a secret. The message of Lourdes is relatively simple. And I think we can see it as part of her response to these evil ideologies. What is the core of her message? I am the Immaculate Conception. In doing this, the dogma of the Immaculate Conception having been proclaimed solemnly only 4 years before, and a little bit contested in some corners, right? That having just been announced, she's confirming the papal authority. She's throwing her weight behind the Pope. She's confirming the ability of the Pope to declare dogmas, that they are binding. She's supporting this power that he has, power of the Pope, which spans across all nations and all governments. And what is she saying? Unlike the theory of rationalism, which says that we're all free from original sin, which is ridiculous, Mary is saying, it is only I, our Blessed Mother, conceived without original sin. And when we see that, we see what a great contrast there is in between her and in between us. And seeing that contrast, we know how much we need her and we need Christ, and how much we need miracles. Because that's the other thing that happens, right? Thousands and thousands of miracles come from Lourdes. Again, it's only been 160 years. As of the year 2000, Lourdes receives around 5 million pilgrims every year. There have been as many, and at that time, there were as many as 7,000 healings, of which at least, I'm sure more now, but at least 66 of them were proven indisputably by all scientific means. Mary's answer to the denial of miracles, the denial of God's active presence in our world, is to give a superabundance of them, so that modern man is struck dumbfounded. He says, I can't explain this. Here Francois is all denying miracles and God's influence, and then our Blessed Mother comes along and ruins it all in a great way. What else? What else does this show us? Does this tell us about Mary? It tells us, too, that she is the mediatrix of all graces. How does it tell us this? Well, that spring, the water was there already. The water was there already at Lourdes. It didn't appear out of nowhere. It didn't appear, it was already there. But it couldn't flow out. It took our Blessed Mother to tell St. Bernadette where to dig. Our Blessed Mother created the opening from which the water could flow out to heal the people. Without her, those waters would not flow. She is saying, I am the one gate to Christ. I am the one gate through which those waters of salvation come not just back in history, but throughout all ages. That every single grace that comes to every single man from God comes through Mary as the mediatrix of all graces. This makes her like an aqueduct. She's not the source of the water. The source of the water is somewhere else. The source of the water is God. It's Christ. But she is the aqueduct. We see this affirmed by so many saints. St. Alphonsus Liguori says that as Holofernes, in order to gain the city of Bethulia, directed the aqueducts to be broken, so the devil makes every effort to deprive souls of their devotion to the Mother of God. For if this channel of grace were closed, he could easily succeed in gaining them for himself. Listen to these other saints. St. Bernard says that God had bestowed all graces on Mary, that men, through her as through a channel, may receive whatever goods are in store for them. Again, St. Bonaventure, Mary is called the gate of heaven because no one can enter heaven if he does not pass through Mary, who is the door of it. St. Bernardine, all gifts, all virtues, all graces are dispensed by Mary, to whom she will, when she will, and in the manner she will. And we could keep going on and on. All these great saints, through all these ages of the Church, have consistently affirmed our Blessed Mother is the mediatrix of all graces, not just once in the past, but here and now. And that's what our Mother is showing us at Lourdes. Again, I am the gate. I am the aqueduct. And what does that mean for us? What does it mean for us? Call your attention to our altar rail here. The design is intended to bring to mind the design of ancient aqueducts. It's supposed to look like an aqueduct, and it does. And that, in turn, is to call to mind that when we approach the altar rail, we're approaching the aqueduct. We're approaching our Blessed Mother as that means, as that path through which the graces from the altar flow down, through which all graces flow down to us who receive those waters from the aqueduct. What else? Lent is coming soon. It's no coincidence that this takes place, that her apparition takes place right before Lent begins. And as it does again this year, right before Lent begins. What else is she telling us? To do penance like a Catholic. Do real traditional penances. Deny our body, our curiosity, our pride. But also to come to Mary. To come to that aqueduct. Make more frequent use of Mass, the sacraments of prayer. To say the Rosary every day, if we don't already. And if you do already, perhaps consider saying an extra decade. Saying a 6-decade Rosary. The Brigittine Rosary, to the best of my knowledge, is the only 6-decade Rosary out there. You're welcome to research it. If you find another one, let me know. But in any case, you might consider adding a decade, just like the Rosary that our Blessed Mother carried at Lourdes, and that she carries in the statue above us now. Finally, drink and wash. Those are her instructions to Saint Bernadette, right? To drink the water, but also to wash herself with it. To wash herself with that water that came out of Lourdes. And we see this, I think, to a certain degree too, also in our statue, our Blessed Mother's sash. These two fonts, these two streams of grace coming down. One that is cleansing, like confession, like baptism. All the sacraments that cleanse one of sin. And then one that is nourishing, that feeds us, like all the sacraments that feed us. And so we want to make great use of those in this time. To cleanse our soul from sin, to nourish our soul with those great sacraments, especially through confession and frequent reception of the Holy Eucharist. So again, I offer to your consideration that our Blessed Mother is calling you maybe to make more frequent use of these sacraments during this holy season of Lent. Finally, I know I said finally, she also instructed that a house be built, that a church be built on that place. Build your house around our Blessed Mother Mary. Build your house around her. Keep her in the center. If you keep her in the center, then you'll have the aqueduct running through your house. You'll have the only gate to that spring of those life-giving waters, at the very center of your house. Who needs falling water? You've got our Blessed Mother. Got our Blessed Mother. We close with a prayer composed by St. Alphonsus Liguori. O holy and heavenly infant Mary, thou who art the destined mother of my Redeemer and the great mediatrix of miserable sinners, have pity on me. Behold at thy feet another ungrateful creature who has recourse to thee and implores thy mercy. It is true that, for my ingratitude towards God and thee, I am deserving of being abandoned by God and thee. But I have been told, and thus I believe, knowing how great is thy compassion, that thou wilt not refuse to help him who, with confidence, recommends himself to thee. Thou, O most exalted of all creatures, since there is no one above thee but God, and in comparison with thee, the greatest in heaven are but small. O Saint of saints, O Mary, abyss of grace, full of grace, help a miserable sinner who has lost it by his own fault. I know that thou art so dear to God that he denies thee nothing. I also know that thou dost rejoice to employ thy greatness in relieving the distressed. Ah, make known how great is thy favor with God by obtaining for me a divine light and a flame so powerful that it may change me from a sinner into a saint, and detaching me from every earthly affection, may wholly inflame me with divine love. Do this, O Lady, because thou canst do it. Do this for the love of that God who has made thee so great, so powerful, and merciful. Thus I hope. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.